Welcome back, everyone, once again to LJL Week 7, Match 7. Coming up, we only have 2 matches left of the regular split, and what a ride it has been to get to this point. We're coming fresh out of V3's victory over Burning Core with a little bit of a salty run back in terms of the compositions that was played after V3. They tried the Sin to win comp, and they had just a little bit too much Sin involved in their game against Sengoku, and so they dial it back to a moderate level of Sin, and they end up with a win over Burning Core. And honestly, good stuff to V3 Esports to be able to pull that one out. They will, of course, not that it was in any contention, but they will retain their first place position. But speaking of standings positions, as we're upcoming the final seedings lock-in for our playoffs, we're going to have Hawks Gaming coming up to bat here against AXZ Gaming. And now, Hawks Gaming being one of the last 2 teams to find their playoff positions and still having 2 games to boot, they are currently in 6th place alone. These 2 teams ahead of them being Burning Core, now at 6 and 7, and DFM now at 7 and 7. So when you're talking about where Hawks Gaming will land on the standings, each of these games matters, as they will either secure themselves 6th with an 0-2, they can tie break for 5th if they get a win over Burning, or well, actually they'll secure 6th unless they're able to win both of these games. They might have a tiebreaker lined up for themselves, but they will either tiebreak against Burning Core or DFM. So these games are a bit important if Hawks Gaming want to chase down Detonation Focus Me moving forward. And against a team like AXZ, they definitely have the chance to at least secure this first win and put it on the line of a tiebreaker to see who will be getting 5th and 6th spot, or potentially 4th and 5th spot. All of that being said, though, I do want to take a look at both Hawks Gaming and AXZ Gaming in how they have done so far this split. AXZ Gaming has been a little bit of a story of struggle for the most part. It's been a little bit rough for them throughout the split. They had a very rough start. They did, I believe, they were at 1.0 and 8 by the end of week 4. It was a very rough time, and even when they were up against Rascal Jester, both being a 0-win team, they are unfortunately just not able to pull it out. But to speak a little bit on AXZ's benefit, the wins that they were able to pull out were fairly impressive ones, and ones that you sort of instill a little bit of faith, and you're wondering if this is just the team that took the weights off of themselves a little bit too early, you know, just kind of took a little bit too long to get heated up. But at this point, they are unfortunately locked out of getting into playoffs, so weren't quite able to find the fire within themselves in a meaningful amount of time. That being said, for Hawks Gaming, they've been sort of an interesting case throughout the split, as they've had some clear-cut weaknesses and some meaningful successes. With top lanes both being on the screens, I definitely think that Aramic has kind of been a potential weak link for Hawks Gaming, and he's really been struggled when enemy teams decide to bully him as hard as they do. It's been a struggle for him a lot of times when he's forced to play on a weaker side of the map. He gets picked on a lot. We've seen him, even when he gets champions that he's very comfortable on, like Wukong, and you give him that priority. There's just been some games where Aramic gets kind of bounced around by the enemy team. So for Hawks Gaming, that's definitely a weakness that they're going to need to start covering up. Because you can't be going into best of 5 sets or best of 3 sets with weaknesses that blatant. So, I think this is definitely a point at which you can prove if you're able to cover it up, or if you're going to be able to kind of like fight past it. And I'm hoping that they're looking to cover things up. They did look fairly good during the Super Week here just past. But we'll see what ends up happening with them as we go into picks and bans here. They're going to be taking up the blue side here and banning away Set right off of the bat. I'm curious to see what Hawks Gaming are going to be doing with this blue side. They were part of the teams that Honey is a very proficient Ashe. He's honestly been a fairly well-standing AD carry. It really is a lot of coming down to Hawks Gaming sort of struggle in regards to Hawks Gaming kind of struggle in where you decide to put your carries and what player is really playing the carry roles. As Dasher has tried a lot on things like Aurelia and of that nature, but it's just not quite been able to make things work. Aramic typically is off on the weak side, and we haven't seen a whole lot of carry top laners coming up from him. But luckily, Tussle and Honey have done pretty good jobs on things like Lee Sin, Ashe, other ADs that Honey is able to perform well on, so as the last of the bans coming through, Set, Camille, and Zoe all taken off the table, while AXZ removing Aphelios, Karma. Would not be surprised to see an Ashe ban here to round things out, but they would leave Bard open as well. So AXZ is going to be taking Twisted Fate off the table here. Hawks Gaming have a couple picks that they can look at, and they are going to send it on the Volibear B1 pickup, and I won't sit here and harp on it any longer than I already have, but AXZ just got an opening to take up Ashe Bard if they want to. But I don't think we've seen Corporal at all on Bard this split. And I'm curious to see if that's a pick he has ready. Day One definitely has been piloting Ashe before and is happy to be taking that one right away. But Hoglet has a couple options of his own to be looking at. Graves still on the table for the jungle position. You have a couple different options there. You can go Trundle if you want to kind of stifle the Volibear advances. Well, as Lee Sin is a very valid option. It will be the Lee Sin dropping in here for axes on that R2. Now, I'm curious to see how Hawks Gaming end up responding, and I was going to say, Jhin is likely going to be the response, as Jhin into the Ashe as a response has been a fairly consistent one, and Dasher's going to lock himself in the Azir here. Well, Axis has a couple picks to be looking at. For Godaidu, I'm a little bit curious to see what we're going to be seeing coming out of him. I think LeBlanc is at least a safe enough champion that he shouldn't be struggling too much. And I do see that locked in for him, but one of the things that I think is a potential weakness that Axis have suffered from in the past few splits, in this past split, is Godaidu kind of had a bit of struggle on champion pool diversity. So in the position that Hawks Gaming set themselves in, even when locking the Azir on a blind, they force Axis to lock in a mid laner for him, as Godaidu's champion pool, he has a lot of champions that he can play, but a lot of them that get really bullied out hard. Twisted Fate being most notably among them, although he was able to find a game end in their last series from this past week. I would think that was in week 6. It was not a pretty sight. There was a lot of times where he was teleporting into the enemy team's face and just kind of getting blown up for it. So not going to be seeing him on that today, while Hawks Gaming is going to be banning away the Bard that might otherwise have come in on that R3 pickup, while Wukong is going to be taken away from Aramic in the top lane. and a Silas ban to help round things out. I'm curious to see if Hawks Gaming is going to be locking in a Kennen here. It likely would have to be a blind pick Kennen, and we'll see what AXZ decide to pick up here. Thresh still available if they want to go on that, but AXZ might just snipe the Kennen away from them if they want to remove that option, and they will take it off the table. It's a little bit risky for AXZ, as you can get pushed away by the Azir wall if you aren't careful. But it does offer a lot of engage magic damage if Garaidu and Unyan are both going forward, slicing Maelstrom and the LeBlanc W's coming in. That's a lot of damage very quickly that could come out, but Hawks Gaming locking in the Mordekaiser as the response. We'll see what Aramic is able to do in that matchup, as Nautilus likely going to be picked up as well. It's either Nautilus or Thresh, most likely, in the minds of Hawks Gaming. I wouldn't put it past them to possibly look at a slightly more defensive support. Jhin Braum is not a terrible lane for them. But AXZ is going to be picking up Leona for Corporal. Not going to be passing, not going to be giving him the Thresh. Instead, going on to the Leona adds a little bit of range to your engage with the Solar Flare ultimate. The slow is even enough for Unyan or Hoglet to find either a slicing Maelstrom of his own or a kick opportunity. So I don't mind the Leona being locked in here, and I think for Corporal specifically as a player, a champion like Leona is a lot more suited to AXZ. One thing I've talked about as well, speaking specifically on Corporal, is as a player, he's sometimes had struggle with too many options being set in front of him, and his focus kind of being split between them. Where there are occasions where Corporal has a good read on the right idea to play back and wait to find a member that's looking for a flank. There also have been a number of times where Corporal is just completely not helping in a fight because he's waiting for a flank that either came in too late and the fight was already lost because he was unable to get involved, or he just ends up kind of getting found out and then he becomes the issue for AXZ. Meanwhile, for Hawks Gaming here, the one thing I am worried about in this lineup is the Jhin pickup. There's not a whole lot of long-range damage outside of maybe an Azir Q that he can really get a root off of. It does help them run down some members of Hawks Gaming, but the thing I am worried about is just that long-range engage, and Dasher can go for some shuffles. The only issue is putting yourself that close to that many members of AXZ Gaming just does not feel like that might be the best play, so Dasher really needs to be a little bit reserved about where he looks to fight. Overall, looking at the drafts, I will say that I do enjoy that Hawks Gaming has a decent enough front line to set up for Dasher to kind of shred people out. And while if you were to remove the players here and you were just to show me these comps, I would be slightly inclined. It's pretty close, as both comps have things that I don't entirely enjoy about them, but I would be slightly favoring the side of AXZ here, but I think knowing the teams and knowing Hawks Gaming, I'm going to have to hand it to them. I think they've just kind of come alive towards the later ends of the split a little bit more than AXZ has. And I don't want to call the wins that AXZ did get flukes. I do think they were well-earned victories, but I just think Hawks Gaming is overall a little bit more consistent of a team. And when you look at AXZ's comp here, I don't exactly think they have a comp that is that effective at punishing side lanes, which is how Hawks Gaming kind of accrued so many of their losses. So we'll wait to see how things go once we get into the actual match here. I think the team fights are definitely going to be something that is rather explosive in this kind of a game. I think both sides have very decent potential to get a good team fight opened, but when you're talking about champions like LeBlanc, Lee, and a Kennen, those are a lot of champions that can just blow up a fight before it even has a chance to begin. One good slicing Maelstrom, an Ash Arrow find, or anything of that nature can really just section off the fights and make it impossible to continue when you know from that point, not only are you potentially playing at a 1 to 2 man disadvantage, but you also are completely zoned away by the slicing Maelstrom until it's over. By that point, if you're not dead, you're chained up, you're Ash Arrowed, you're locked up on a Leona. So we'll see kind of how this ends up playing out for both of them. I really am hoping we're going to see AXZ kind of go out with a bang, and I do like to see that AXZ at least seem to be still drafting with a fair amount of effectiveness. It just becomes a question of, does AXZ have the spirit as well? And I think that's one thing that will be present in this match.
LJL 2020 サマースプリットウィーク7ゲーム7 アクシズ vs 福岡ソフトバンクホークスゲーミングの試合スタートです。
As we get things started along here, one of the other things I think is worth mentioning is, or at least talking about as we're approaching playoffs, is Kennen in the LJL. It's sort of risen in popularity recently, but has not seen the most amount of success. I'm struggling a bit to think of times where a Kennen was a real difference maker in a lot of these games, and especially with the LJL being notorious for the amount of weaker post lane play of top laners. There's a lot of times where I watch Kennens just get obliterated alone in the side lanes. I believe it was a spring split game that we saw a Kennen into a Gnar, and the Kennen was able to really pop off, but there haven't been a whole lot of pop-off performances of a Kennen of recent. And I really think it's going to... I'm worried that Union is not going to be the player to really show off a Kennen showcase here, but I am more than willing to be proven wrong here while the AI seems to favor AXZ, so perhaps it's best to listen to the machines on this one, as time will tell for the rest of this matchup. Looking across runes just very quickly, pretty much everything you would expect. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Dasher is taking Electrocute, which does give him a little bit of trading power, but a good sidestep on the chain there. He will get a Sonic Wave landed on. It's a couple autos, and about half of his or at least a third of his HP gone. Will force out one of his refill pots to be able to buy that time. He is going to actually pop both of them right away. But that being said, I don't think it's a terrible position for Dasher to be in. Both laners have teleport, and I am a little bit surprised that Dasher did go for Electrocute. But when you're looking at the comp of AXZ, it really does come to make sense. As well, a lot of times you do see Azir's opting in for like the lethal tempo. There's no real beef frontline for AXZ here. You're talking about a semi-squishy jungler, Union, who does not have any good build paths towards magic resist, and neither does Garaidu. And they likely won't be prioritizing that until later on, so Aramik and Dasher both have potential to get decent value out of the damage items they buy. They don't need to worry about buying pen items until a little bit later. And with Aramik and Dasher being both champions that enjoy looking for something like... Well, hold on. Speaking of looking, Dashers almost got punished off of that teleport. Was able to get out of that one in the end. But this is another, that is sort of an important note for this matchup, is a lot of times we also see Mordekaisers having to go for the Bramble Vest very early on into lanes. This is a lane that he does not need to go for it nearly at all. He can go right into his damage items, which makes his lane with Unyon a lot better. And definitely will come into play going throughout this one. And the other thing for Armic is that Merc Treads are kind of a bit hyper incentivized, as you benefit a lot from getting the magic resist, but also less things to worry about like the Ash Arrow, chains from the LeBlanc, and just stuns coming out from Unyon. So I definitely think the top lane split push threat is very real coming out from Aramic. For now, though, he will have a bit of a CS advantage as he is playing out the ranged into melee matchup fairly well. Tussle's kind of looking around for Hoglet. Kites the Wolf Camp out. And he should get a little bit of information, as I don't believe that AXZ will see that camp as gone. Or, excuse me, that Hawks Gaming will see that camp as gone. So he'll at least know that one wolf is still up, and that does give him information that Hoglet was there, but not seeing Hoglet and not getting to check up on his overall CS number is really what's going to be a difference maker here. We'll give enough information to Hawks, though, that he is on the top side of the map, and that's going to be Infernal Drake dropped down for Hawks Gaming, as a pleasant first Drake to be picking up. Adds a little bit of damage that will come in handy later. And when you're talking about Dasher having Electrocute anyway, fairly good deal to be adding just that extra little icing on the cake, the cherry on top, to trying to burst out any of the squishy members of AXZ Gaming. I am a little bit curious to see if AXZ are going to opt into any fights around this Rift Herald objective. While Unyon might have opportunity to find a good ultimate and hopefully get something off there, anyone who gets ulted by Aramic is effectively going down. Maybe Godaidu can kind of dash in and out of it long enough to live out, but it really is going to come down to a question of who can execute the fight better, even without the burst potential coming out from either team, as Dasher's not going to be bursting anyone out or have a lot of damage to shred people through. Godaidu's not going to be bursting anyone out entirely, and both Day 1 and Honey are somewhat not very weak. Day 1, Ash is a little bit stronger early on, but they're not exactly hyper damage carries, at least this early on in the game. Dasher gonna get chained up here. Corporal can't really follow that one in without putting himself in turret range, so Dasher's just gonna do his best to trade that damage back over. Corporal already being on this side of the map that early, though, does give incentive for Pooh to start wandering up if they want to start moving up resources over to that Rift Herald. But it looks like both of them are going to be taking a reset for now while we wait for a little bit more. Corporal's going to walk up for this pink cord. It looks like Hawks Gaming might just be willing to pass that one over, but as it stands right now, Hawks Gaming are the ones kind of gatekeeping the Rift Herald here. Godaidu's going to go for a leash onto the bear, force the ultimate out. As it stands right now, Tussle doesn't have the most amount of mana. He will get a little bit of mana regen here, but it's sort of one of the issues that we see, and why a lot of top lane Volibears take that Doran's Ring is because he's a little bit mana hungry early on, and especially when you're talking about longer engages, he wants multiple Ws that he's able to keep the healing up during those times. but with an ultimate already forced out, I don't believe
ああなるほど
that Hawks Gaming can really contest. They can when the bot lane's rotated all the way up here, and AXZ recognizing just that are gonna back away.
ヘラルドを起こしたのは
You don't have your AD carry, so this is a fight that AXZ want no real part of.
ここは人数差
Rather, take the advantage that Day One is able to get by shoving the lane under turret here. And it looks like Hoglet is going to run down there to get some information onto Hawks' red side there.
うまく利用しながらオブジェクトの獲得につなげていますよね。
これドラゴンもヘラルドもこうジャングルの1対1ではホグレットがこう
That is some awareness that I really like to see coming out from AXZ Gaming, is just recognizing the situation. You say, alright, Honey is completely opted out of lane. We can make him lose a little bit of CS. We can give Day One a turret plate. Even if we had Tussle with no ultimate and we didn't cost ourselves anything for it, it's just a little bit too risky. We needed Day One up here earlier if we wanted to make that call. Pass over the Rift Herald.
揃って強力な仕掛けというのができる
Totally acceptable if you are AXZ Gaming here.
ただここから先手を取っていきたいのは SHG 側で、やはりヘラルドをどううまく使っていくのという部
The
分。
question will be, where does Hawks drop this Rift Herald? And really,
まだレベル5になっている状況
it won't net them a whole lot. As yeah, I was going to say, that play is not going really anywhere in the mid lane either.
レベルが遅れています
But it might be going somewhere onto AXZ as a flash for flash.
さあフラッシュダウン
Pooh flashes forward with that dredge line there in Corporal. Good reactionary flash coming back out.
状況を整えたことになりますね。
And while AXZ did opt out of one fight, Hawks Gaming might be forced to drop the Rift Herald here coming up if they want to force their way onto this Cloud Drake. It will either be an Ocean or a Mountain Soul, so it's definitely worth it to prioritize getting this second Drake and be closer to the Soul objective.
ここでガリアルダッシャーの体力を少しでも削っておきたいただミニをしっかりと押し込んで
And using the Rift Herald pressure is a great way to get that.
ボットレーンに控えているのはホグレット
We'll see how things go. Hoglet
あれだウィンヤンのみ
hunting around here. They will see him on the vision in mid lane from that Rift Scuttler, but like I mentioned, there goes the Rift Herald spawned up into the mid lane. Garaidu taking a little bit of a trade there. The electrocute helping out a bit in that department. There goes the charge. That's going to be Honey kind of walking up to steal away a little bit of that gold as well.
ここは届いていない
So he does get hit by a Sonic Wave, a good find from Hoglet, but we'll see if he's able to
確認しました
really capitalize on anything here.
破壊に入ります
ただこれドラゴンの睨み合い
Garaidu has teleport if he wants to take a back here just to get up to full HP before this fight is underway. And Unyon has teleport advantage, so if a fight does break out, AXZ can make it a 4v5. But starting the Drake up and tanking the Drake damage in the meantime is not exactly something that AXZ are too keen on. They are going to start this one up solo here. And it does look like Tussle is going to try and stay away from this for now. He's just going to take the Scuttler on the top side and might have an opportunity to steal away a camp or two from Hoglet, but they're going to pass over the Cloud Drake. And good recognition from both sides just to opt out of fights that you sort of know there's an advantage on the other side in positioning. And Aramic is going to give first blood over to Tussle. That's exactly what we mentioned earlier, where anyone who Aramic really shadow roams, he kind of wins the 1v1 with. As Unyon is going to go down there and lose a couple minions, I don't believe he'll lose too much. It will really just kind of even up the gold in that lane, but not a position you want to find yourself in if you are Kennen by any means. And that's exactly pretty much what we were talking about with a lot of Kennens in the LJL, is that just the laning phase is just so hard for so many, or laning phase, rather, just being in an isolated lane with an opponent lane is just never really gone to the most ideal circumstances for a Kennen. But AXZ still has possibility to hopefully start up a team fight.
SHG としては全体でダッシャー選手のパワースパイクを待つというのが妥当な判断になるかなと思いますね。
Time will tell how things go for the rest of Hawks Gaming's attempts here, but this time Hoglet might be found out here on this blue buff. Armic is coming back around. He doesn't have Death Realm this time. And Union does have Slicing Maelstrom. So if a fight does break out, does not look like there is going to be one. Hoglet gonna win the Smite fight and get away with the blue buff as he should be safe in that department. It looks like Honey's picking up the Krugs on the bottom end, trying to catch up a bit in the farm. Skydoo going in onto Dasher here a little bit. The Sonic Wave will force a bit of a retreat out from Dasher, and rightfully so, as you'd rather not give Hoglet any opportunities there. And I like this teeter-totter that AXZ are pulling off here so far. Pull members up towards the top side with invading on that blue buff. Exhibit pressure on the bot side. This will give your AD a chance to reset. And it looks like AXZ are going to be opting in for this Rift Herald. Unless Day 1 is actually going back down to the bottom side. They do get an ideal time to reset, but AXZ may be saying that they don't want to look for the fight just yet. Looks like instead they want to try and crack open first turret on this bottom side. They might be able to do just that if Honey's able to get it back up. They're going to go for the dive a little bit early. Ash is not here. They'll force out the flash and the cleanse, as well as the teleport in from Aramic. A good kick's going to bounce him back, but Aramic should just be able to Shadow Realm Corporal if he can catch up to him. But chasing this far away will lead the turret to go down. They do get the Rift Herald off. I believe Tussle was able to solo that one out in his absence. And Honey will be able to get that kill in the end. Corporal going to be going down for that one. That'll be Hawks Gaming's second kill, but with AXZ getting first turret, it's going to even up the gold a bit, as the mid turret will fall in exchange. In terms of macro and vision, that's not a bad trade for Hawks Gaming. You get a kill, you open up the mid lane turret. How you use those respective advantages will really come to pass here. And with an Ocean Soul on the menu, if you are AXZ Gaming, getting the bot lane turret is not a bad deal. You got a lot of turret plates off of it. If you're able to set up more vision around the bottom end and give yourselves a safe position to set up fights from, not a bad deal at all. There goes an arrow from Day 1. The combo with the Solar Flare. Corporal's E just going to whiff out. And Dasher will be able to get to safety there. Didn't even have to burn his flash in the end. Corporal probably recognizing his mistake there as he throws up a white flag. And that's 2 ultimates down already from the side of AXZ, but it looks like they will be starting up this Drake right away. Corporal's back going to be stopped from the pulse of the Dragon's Wing here. Meanwhile, Day 1 is alone in the mid lane. If they're going to leave him alone in the mid lane, they could look for a potential dive either on the top or bot side. And the amount of vision control from Hawks will really make them need to worry about that. As Union is just going to be forced all the way away from his turret. Aramic not going to get it on this wave, as Corporal comes up to try and hold on to that top lane turret, help out his top lane cannon there, but Hoglet in a little bit deep here. Has a lot of fog to retreat to on this side of the map, so it's going to be very difficult for Hawks Gaming to really chase him down. And while we're just kind of enjoying a little while longer of a lull state, don't imagine we'll be seeing too much team fighting coming out, as, like we were talking about earlier, the lull states somewhat benefit Hawks Gaming, as Cannon is not exactly a very proficient split pusher with the AP team fight build. That being said, if AXZ they can kind of assist multiple lanes, they can look for picks, as Speaking of which, like I mentioned, the side lanes are going to be what Hawks Gaming are able to abuse here. That's going to be Unyan pulled back by the E. I don't think Unyan has anywhere to run, and it's a little bit fast. The flash? Oh, geez. The flash is going to be so good that it forces my voice up 3 octaves, but Tussle going to help knock down that Kennen with a flash stun there. Not a bad deal, and like I said earlier, Hogs Gaming hyper incentivized with all of these Merc Treads coming out, but Dasher gonna be getting dove of his own. A beautiful ultimate will force out the flash from Hoglet as he's gonna go down to the turret there in the end. Pooh's gonna be the one picking up that kill as a Jin W is not quite gonna land over. Godai is fairly low, so needs to be a little bit careful. While Aramic is pushing in the top lane as well, so trading turret damage across the map. And we'll watch this one more time. I do like this play from Dasher, as once Q cooldown was off, Godai goes in, and I love this R. Unfortunately, it's still just one flash away from Hoglet. While the aggro was exchanged, Godai wasn't able to tank that one up any longer. And Hawks Gaming are on the Baron here. I don't think AXZ know that they're doing it, but this isn't exactly a very fast Baron. A lot of pings coming out, and there goes the Hawk shot that will give them the information on it. This feels... that felt a little bit random from Hawks Gaming, if I'm being completely honest. Especially being a team that, like we mentioned, sort of benefits from these lull states and just keeping Aramic alone in side lanes. He has 2 long lanes to be playing around. But I think that was definitely not really a play at the Baron, but really a play at trying to pull AXZ's vision resources up towards the top side. I think it's definitely one of those kind of pump fake moments for Hawks Gaming where you're trying to see if you can get AXZ to waste resources on the top side of the map, and then hopefully make the vision war on the bottom end a little bit easier for you once you get the timing synced up on this Ocean Drake spawn. And as it stands right now, AXZ in a very defensive position for their vision. Here we go on Hawks Gaming once again, trying to secure as much vision as they can onto the top side around this Baron. How much pressure can they pull from AXZ? As if you're gonna keep posturing for this aggressive vision war on the top side, if you're AXZ Gaming, you might be thinking to yourselves, are they really crazy enough to do it? Is Dasher really gonna be enough damage? Are they going to commit to it? That's the guessing game you want AXZ to be playing if you are Hawks Gaming, but 5 seconds to that Ocean Drake spawn, and Tussle's looking for a flank opportunity. He will get spotted out on a ward, but Pooh gets things started off. The Jin W will buy him only so much time. Tussle's gonna be caught alone here. He doesn't have time to pull the ultimate, but he will drop over the wall here. There's a teleport flank coming in. Hawks Gaming are kind of split down the middle here. Here comes Unyan. Has opportunity for a slicing maelstrom, but needs to wait for his team to reconvene. There goes a dredge line. Not gonna find any members, but Tussle once again dropping the ultimate before the fight really begins. Might mean that AXZ have this Drake in the bag. Aramic is just doing his best to try and find Unyan alone. There goes a Mace Slam. He finds him and will keep him away enough that he's not able to use a Slicing Maelstrom, but does Hawks Gaming want the fight anyway with Tussle being this low HP? He can go in for a steal opportunity. I think he did commit the smite onto that Rift Scuttler, which means Drake will go over to the side of AXZ, but here comes a curtain call to try and get onto Corporal. Day One gonna need to tank that up for him while Hoglet's running away on the other end of the map. This looks like a defused situation with no kills going over, but AXZ going up to Soul Point there. And in the wake of that, Sort of
追い込まれた形になりますね。
追い込まれたと。
sort of the exact same issue of I think a lot of teams, and this has come up with Hawks Gaming multiple times now, of either misunderstandings of how to play the bear or misunderstandings of how good the Volibear actually is.
あとはタッスル選手が
Tussle is not a flank, or Tussle is not playing a flanking champion. The bear is not a LeBlanc. The bear is not a Kennen.
そうですね、アクシーとしてもその後
If he's in a flanking position, it does not mean nearly anything, but you're walking on AXZ's side of the map. And you didn't bother to, with all of the aggressive vision war that you put on to the Baron side of the map, you haven't had the same amount of time to clear away AXZ's vision that they left over on the Drake side. So if you're AXZ, or if you're Hawks, you had to have known that you were going to be spotted out there. And while you're just caught away from your team, and Union comes in off of a flank TP, Hawks get absolutely scattered and lose all coherency to form a team fight. In the wake of that, Armic does a great job of just trying to find Union and keep him away,
取るのであれば
but that leaves only the Volibear to be your frontline, and if he's burning his ultimate purely defensively, and then just surviving at a 1/3 HP marker, there's not a whole lot of options that Hawks Gaming really have at that objective fight.
似合うかどうかは非常に大事ですね。
They might have an opportunity here. Tussle's gonna flash forward, doesn't get the stun off,
守り切った。
as that's gonna be a beautiful play as Dasher goes in for a good shuffle onto two members. We'll see what it means for Union as he's gonna find one. The Jin and the Mordekais are gonna find two more to build themselves back up. This is looking like AXZ's fight to clean.
ダブルキル獲得はハニーです。さあこれで4キルの獲得 SHG。
And this was almost exactly what we talked about in the Champ Select, where
狙ってくると思います。ただ
sure Dasher can go forward for the opening play to get that shuffle off. He is almost always going to sacrifice him. The benefit to Hawks Gaming in that scenario was they were able to clean this up. At this point, Honey has enough damage, and Godai's feeling exactly that, as he's going to get chunked out. I don't think he's going to be looking for an opportunity to steal there.
ことになりそうでしょうか。
今のはプー選手素晴らしい反応
And even with Union coming in and finding a decent teleport or a decent ultimate there,
やる。
it was really the story of Jin kind of cleaning that fight up
これはがぜん SHG 側が有利になってきたと思います。
and finding benefit in this one. So we'll watch this one more time, and
いや普通に
I think eyes go to really Dasher as the big move that started things off. So Tussle goes in here and ends up getting stunned and then kicked back out before he can find anything of severe value. Dasher, Flash R, knocks back two members, and you know he's going down for this. Pulls Union away, or excuse me, Day One away into the Shadow Realm, so he's able to get no value. And Godaidu just shows up a little bit too late to this party to really get anything done.
使用するというダッシャー選手の判断が素晴らしかったですね。
That's sort of the strength of Armic on the Mordekaiser, is even if he's not pulling away Union,
引き込んだので
it's still a good opportunity, and while Day One does not have QSS, he's going to be a consistent target of his.
さああとはこのバロンを
And that's honestly
オーシャンドレイクを
one thing for Hawks Gaming that
取らせないように
I really have to commend Armic for his recognition in that scenario. Union's already in, he's already getting the ultimate off.
でもいいかなとは
You have four Merc Treads on your team, so you're not exactly too worried about the stun, especially once he's already popped ultimate. Take Day One out. That's your next target. So the selection from Armic is another good point of that fight that really helped things along there.
バンシーは剥がしたがガリアルもその瞬間に大きなダメージを食らう。おおホグレットにもいいダメージが入っています。
He was able to find the fight there, but we'll see if Hawks Gaming are able to find another one.
トップレーンを押し込み続けている
They're pushing onto the mid lane now with Baron. Still have about a minute with this onslaught, but realistically, Armic taking that bot lane turret and buying that pressure there
ミッドのインヒビタータワーが削れていきます。
will be all Hawks Gaming really need to settle for. They can wait for one more wave before they can back over to that Ocean Drake.
正直なところこれ SHG が取って
And now they're kind of regrouping here. You can see Dasher's already on to the Drake there, but a teleport coming up from Armic. They're going to look for a fight around this one. Hawks Gaming have inside track, but that's going to be Honey who's caught out on the other end. The arrow's going to go wide. That's going to be actually Jungler dead for the side of Hawks Gaming. Or excuse me, for the side of AXZ, as another beautiful W is going to land his way. Honey said, "You thought you were catching me? That's not quite how it seems," as he turns that one on its head.
追い込むような形は取れていたんですが、
Beautiful play from Honey, has a couple of good sidesteps. He was forced out into his... We did force out the cleanse, but turning that situation on its head, that's sort of the... This is sort of the, like, pivot that Jin goes through. Is early on, he's a little bit weak, but now he's a little bit stronger. Scorpo's gonna pop the stone plate while he's going all in. The stun from Munyon is good, but there's really no members that can really follow up on it at this point. Hawks Gaming may have just found their win over AXZ. A good knockup, but AXZ were never really in a position to take an all-in fight. The damage from Hawks Gaming is just going to be a little bit too high, as Honey is going to go 6-0-3 in this one. Might be able to find one more with the curtain call, but Armik's going to steal that one away. GG is going over to Hawks Gaming. Is they're going to pull that one out with a 10k gold lead, and honestly, a fairly commendable show from Hawks Gaming to be able to pull this one out with objective disadvantage throughout most of the game. I feel like Hawks Gaming definitely played these situations accordingly. Good recognition from honestly both teams, if we are going to give some commendations to AXZ, of the amount of respect you need to give over when dealing with each objective. In the wake of that, though, GG's to AXZ. An unfortunate way to go out on the split, but a commendable show here at the end, nonetheless. And Hawks Gaming picking up their win will now leave them tied with Burning Core, and will make our last match of the day a tiebreaker between Hawks Gaming and Burning Core. So if you're looking forward to seeing that match and seeing the last of where all of these teams fall in place, be sure to tune in and stay here for the break. I'm going to be taking another quick break, refill on water, and the like of that. Thank you all again for tuning in. I am your host, Dr. No. I do all of the LJL English broadcasting, commentary, and some other analytical pieces. If you guys are interested in staying tuned for the playoffs and some other analytical pieces that will be coming up going forward here, you can tune into that over on my... You can tune into that here, which I will be streaming all those matches on Twitch. So you can leave a follow here. And if you want to know when I'm going live, when other YouTube videos are going to be uploaded, or if you just like, if you're just a fan of a lot of other esports, I tend to tweet about a lot of FGC things. I am going to be also getting involved in a bit of Valorant content coming up, so if you guys like that sort of thing, you can drop a follow on my Twitter, which is in the little description area below. All of that being said, though, thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. I have once again been your host, Dr. No. We have one last match coming up for the day, so if you guys are sticking with me, I'll be looking forward to seeing you there. Don't go anywhere, and I'll be right back. That's the wrong one.
準備、そしてスタート地点というところ非常に重要ですよね。
特に今季の1、2、3位が非常に強いんですよ。
強いですね。
なので初戦で当たらなくて済むというのはかなり美味しい状況ですよね。
さあこの後の試合で SHG が勝てるかどうかでタイブレイクの詳細また決まってくると思いますが、そちらは渡り次第また詳しく情報を伝えていければなと思います。さあそれでは見事勝利した福岡ソフトバンクホークスゲーミングよりハニー選手のインタビュー準備できているということなので、高田さんお願いいたします。
はい、さあそれでは福岡ソフトバンクホークスゲーミングハニー選手にお話をお伺いしましょう。さあプレーオフ有利にするためにも大事な一戦取りました。いかがでしょうか。
플레이오프를 유리하게 만들기 위해서도 중요한
네.
경기였는데 이 소감 어떠세요?
일단 플레이오프 확정된 것도 되게 좋고 이번 경기를 이겨서 더 기분이 좋은 것 같아요.
네. プレーオフ決められていることもすごく確定していることもすごく嬉しいんですけれども、今の試合に勝ててすごく嬉しいです。
ありがとうございます。さあイエガさんお願いします。
はい、その試合の話について少し伺っていきたいんですけれども、その LJL の中で結構アッシュに対して、世界的に見てもそうなんですけれども、アッシュに対して陣を当てるという選択がまずそう結構一般的になってきている中で、ちょっと LJL ではうまくいってない部分も先週の時点ではあったんですが、ハニー選手自身はこのアッシュに対して陣というピックどう考えてますか？
LJL에서라기보다는 세계적으로도
네.
SU에 대해서 그 진을 꺼내는 선택은 일반적인 선택이 되어가고 있는 것 같아요. 근데
네.
LJL에서는 지난주에는 조금 안 좋았는데 그
네.
본인의 평가는 어떻게 되세요?
저는 애쉬 상대로 진이 그냥 딱히 유리한 구도도 아니고 불리한 구도도 아니고 그냥 반반 구도인 것 같아요.
足に対して陣を出すことは僕の考えでは有利でもなく、不利でもなく半々という感じですね。
なるほど、その中で、この試合で陣をピックした、理由というか決め手っていうのはどこにあったんでしょう？
그렇다면은 이번 경기에서 진을 꺼낸 이유는 뭘까요?
진 챔피언이 일단 재밌기도 하고 애쉬 상대로 진을 많이 연습해서 썼던 것 같아요.
ね。陣を使うのはすごく楽しいっていうのもあるんですけれども、
あ
足に対して陣を使う練習をすごくたくさんしたので今日はピックしました。
なるほど。ちょっとその練習のあたりにかかってくるのかなと思いますけれども、福岡ソフトバンクホークスゲーミングは、先週のスーパーウィーク前に新たに、コーチを2人ほど迎え入れましたよね。その新たなコーチとのそのやり取りの中で、ハニー選手何か新たに得たこととかってありますか？
그 연습에 대해서, 그러니까 연습 얘기가 나왔는데
네.
거기에 관련된 질문이 될 수도 있는데요. 그
네네.
지난주부터 그 새로운 코치님이
네.
들어왔다고 들었어요.
네.
들어오셨다고 들었는데 그 코치님이 새로 들어오신 것으로 인해 얻은
네.
일이, 본인이 얻은 일이 뭐가 있을까요?
일단 팀적 운영도 그렇고 팀적 운영 단계에 대해서 많이 알려주셨고 개인 미스도 하나하나 다 체크해 주셔서 많이 플레이가 좋아진 것 같아요.
チーム的なマクロっていうんですかね、そういうことについてもすごく、得たことがありますし、あとは個人的なミスについてもすごく指摘してくださるので、プレーが良くなったような感じがします。
確かにスーパーウィークあたりから一気にこう福岡ソフトバンクホークスゲーミングのまとまりというところがね良くなってるなっていうふうに、感じています。そして、最後にはなるんですけれども、ハニー選手はこれで、2シーズン目の LJL となるわけですが、プー選手とのコンビネーションはいかがですか？
그렇다면 허니 선수한테는 LJL 이번 시즌 두 번째 시즌 되잖아요.
네.
그래가지고 푸 선수와의 호흡은 어떠신가요?
확실히 스프링 시즌보다는 많이 좋아진 것 같고 아직도 제가 일본어를 못해서 조금은 이제 소통에 문제는 있는 것 같은데 그래도 조금 괜찮은 것 같아요.
確実に春よりは良くなっているという感じですね。ただ僕がまだまだちょっと日本語が難しいのでコミュニケーションの部分ではちょっと問題があるんですけれども、それでも少しずつ良くなってきたなという感じがします。
コミュニケーションはここからですけれども、どんどんとねレベルアップしていっていただきたいなと思います。ありがとうございます。
はい、私の方からは、先週の時点でプレーオフ進出はもう確定していましたが SHG としては初のプレーオフ進出ということで決まった時のチームでの反応だったりとか何か話したこととかはありましたか？
네, 지난 시즌에 플레이오프는 이미 진출이 확정됐었지만 그래도
네.
SHG로서는 첫 진출이었잖아요.
네네.
그래가지고 팀원들의 반응이나 팀원들과의 나눈
네.
얘기, 어떤 얘기가 있었나요?
일단 플레이오프 가서 팀원들 모두 엄청 기뻐했고 플레이오프 가서 이제 전 시즌 못 갔지만 이번 시즌 갔으니까 저희가 이제 많이 노력해서 좋은 경기력 보여주기로 했습니다.
チームメイトたち、全体的にすごく嬉しそうでしたね。前のシーズンではプレーオフに行けなかったので、今シーズン行けたので、いい試合をできるように頑張りたいなっていうふうに思ってます。
ありがとうございます。プレーオフでも活躍楽しみにしています。最後に、レギュラーシーズン最後の試合になります。この後最後の試合になりますが、こちらについての意気込みの方お願いいたします。